The form of death serves as a kind of indicator that evaluates a person's life. The man lit his cigarette and thought about the assignment he had recently received. The memory of being given money for a completed task came back to him. He glanced at the trash can behind him and thought he heard someone groaning from it. The man was leisurely smoking his cigarette and kept thinking about the task at hand, while behind him some guys were filling a trash bin with sand. Without thinking, he threw the cigarette butt into the very same trash can where, it turned out, the man was. I wonder who appreciated this guy's life. What kind of life he lived that he ended up here. The leader of the group confidently pointed at the girl nicknamed Snow White. That was their target. He spoke about the complexity and importance of the task. The young man named Kim Soo-hyuk suddenly raised his hand, wanting to ask a question about this girl. He was very interested in why she was called that, because she was not white. At first glance, it seemed to him that this girl was an ordinary Asian, weak and harmless. But behind this appearance, there was something more. The man asked the director, Kim Soo-hyuk, in a stern voice not to judge her by race and gender and to take the information seriously. Their object, despite its apparent fragility, is extremely dangerous. It was Anna Nanayama, known in the underworld as Snow White. She was the head of the Nanayama-gumi Yakuza. The man began to tell the reason for the girl's nickname. It was because of the highly pure drug Pure Seek Sex. The girl sells it under the pseudonym Snow White. Moreover, she not only sold drugs but also forced young girls to use them. According to the information, Anna plans to throw a drug party in a hotel with minimal security after meeting with the international group. To prevent further spread of the drug, the authorities decided to act decisively. It was necessary to eliminate it once and for all. The authorities were very concerned about such manipulations, since with their substances, they brought young girls to a dying state. The man said they had to mark it as a gang conflict, so the use of firearms was prohibited. The director knew that the task was not easy, so they assigned the main character as their best agent, Kim Soo-hyuk. Now they could only rely on him, because he had already managed to deal with especially dangerous criminals more than once, and the young man promised that everything would be done at the highest level. The director was glad that Kim did not refuse, because the matter was indeed very dangerous. But the young man had no idea what lay ahead. The main character made his way into the hotel where Anna was hiding at the exit of the elevator. People loyal to their mistress were already waiting for him. The men guarding the entrance shouted that it was forbidden to be there, but this did not stop the hero. He warned through the earpiece, apparently to his partner, named Alpha, that he was coming in. But everything turned out to be a little more complicated than I expected. The armed guards pounced on him. It was clear that they were ready to kill the man, just so as not to disturb the peace of their mistress. Kim Soo-hyuk, although he didn't expect such a reception, was still ready for a fight. The hero quickly dealt with his opponents, using his skills and experience. Each of his blows was precise and deadly. Kim understood that he had no right to make a mistake. The young man decided to turn to the director for help, since it would be stupid to go on alone. Non-combatants to eliminate about 10 people. There are believed to be more than 20 militants. The director asked Kim Soo-hyuk how many people were needed to break into this building. The hero replied that he would need only 3 people, including himself. The head was embarrassed by this answer, and asked again whether this number of people would be enough. Kim reassured him that the hotel only had 3 exits, so that would be the best option. Their plan was total destruction. He never doubted his brothers, no matter how many opponents there were. Everything went according to plan. They broke into the building again and dealt with the security. All the guards were lying in different corners. They were definitely destroyed. One of the brothers was even surprised that everything went so easily. They are black intelligence agents and have been through hell. But Kim asked them to focus on the mission. Now there is only one way out of 3. The protagonist ordered to block it and kill everyone who tried to break through. Determination was reflected in his eyes. The agents entered and saw a strange picture in front of them. They even seemed to be confused and terrified for a while. For a while, the brothers stood in silence and tried to understand what had happened here. The floor was strewn with corpses, the bodies lying in different positions, indicating the brutality of the battle that had taken place here. The target must be found in any case, so Kim ordered all the doors to be locked, but he did not have time to finish his words. There was a knock at the door and the agents tried to ask who was behind it, but received no answer. They were immediately blinded by a flash of bright light. The agents had to stop for a while to get their bearings. Anna Nanayama quickly turned on the light and made a strange, frightening sound, similar to laughter. Kim was a little confused by the sudden appearance of his opponent. The girl was very curious about what would happen next. Anna, lifting the almost dead body by the head, warned that the same would happen to the agents if they did not leave themselves. They considered themselves invincible, blindly believing in their strength and power, but now it seemed as if they were face to face with death. The brothers still couldn't come to their senses after what they saw and what happened. The Yakuza leader grabbed the girl's severed head and threw it at one of the men. The man managed to catch his head in his hands, as strange as it may sound. And then he was horrified. He was frightened by the girl's behavior. Without giving her opponents time to realize it, she released another wave of attack, thereby killing one of the protagonist's men. Ji-hyuk was dead, which made the brothers very angry. The boys immediately rushed towards Anna. They were filled with rage. Kim couldn't believe it. She shot the second brother in the head too. Blood flew across his face. And Kim himself was torn between feelings of both resentment and rage at the same time. The girl just laughed evilly, another corpse in her piggy bank. No matter how many bugs gathered, they would still remain bugs. Snow White wondered what they were hoping for. She was too calm. All her actions were clear and coordinated. It was necessary to think clearly then. This creature was clearly beyond the capabilities of the main character. But after everything that happened, he couldn't just leave. The girl threw her teeth at the hero. Kim felt the adrenaline rushing through his veins. Teeth flew past his head, and he again didn't understand what was happening. Anna got into the swing of things. It wasn't that easy to kill the main character. Soo-hyuk dodged the girl's attacks and approached closer. Kim jumped up and swung his knife, hoping to inflict at least some injury on his opponent. Snow White, possessing impressive physical strength and agility, suddenly put her hand to the young man's face. Her muscles seemed to be endowed with monstrous power, which was puzzling. With one hand, she pushed the young man away. Kim lay practically without strength. He was surprised. He had never seen such strength before, especially in a girl. In an instant, she leapt into the air like a natural athlete and landed right on top of the hero, leaving him no chance to resist. She landed with her feet right on the protagonist's legs. It seemed like they were going to break. Kim even screamed in pain. It was very unpleasant. Anna, with passion in her voice, admitted that she really liked him. The girl stuck a knife into Kim's hand and asked him to turn her on even more. Asking him to make it even more interesting, she leaned right towards the young man's face. The young man's hand was pinned to the ground with a knife, and he had no chance of getting out. The hero screamed at the top of his voice. He couldn't understand what he needed to make more interesting. How could such a spectacle be something funny? Her games made Kim even more furious. Is it really that interesting to take lives just for fun? He turned his head towards his brothers, lying dead a couple of meters away from him. The main character repeated his question several more times and moved closer to the girl. He shouted into her face everything that had accumulated inside him over these couple of minutes. Suddenly, literally from somewhere above, he gained strength and he bit Anna on the neck. He tore a piece of skin from Snow White's neck with his teeth and threw it aside. The guy immediately grabbed the piece of glass lying next to him. He drove it deep into the wound, hoping to finally kill his opponent. Snow White seemed surprised that the young man still had any strength left. And then she fell right on top of him, surprising Kim. He couldn't believe that killing this lady, who had brought him so much pain and suffering in the last couple of minutes, was still so easy. The hero thought only about the fact that he was the only one left alive and mentally asked his brothers for forgiveness. But because he had spent a lot of energy on this battle, he could not move. Kim heard some voices and immediately tried to jump up. Anna also jumped up at that moment, and unexpectedly, Soo-hyuk's body began to hurt badly, as if he was breaking from the inside. The girl expressed surprise that Kim bit her. The wound began to heal immediately after she pulled the splinter out of her neck. Kim couldn't understand how this was possible. Everything that was happening around him seemed to be racking his brain. His body was in severe pain, and trying to understand what was happening was already useless, the girl warned. Snow White simply watched the young man suffer, and only said that she had never met anyone like him before. She said a very strange phrase. The girl admitted that she would like the hero to survive. Kim made what seemed like his last sound, perhaps trying to call someone for help. The blood gushed down his face as if with even greater force. Snow White sat and watched everything that happened to Kim, and she enjoyed it. And then she sighed sadly. She became bored. She hoped that the hero could still continue the fight. Out of nowhere, Director Kim burst into the room, followed by security guards. She looked angrily at the man who had uncivilizedly burst into her space. And then she smashed his head with a shot of incredible force. The girl's guards seemed to be surprised by their mistress's strength. The girl ordered them to remove the bodies. In a room full of corpses, she felt at ease and nothing bothered her. They say that the form of death judges life. The men were surprised to see the main character's corpse emerge from the barrel in which they wanted to bury him. They simply watched what would happen next, and they even became interested. One of them thought it looked like rigor mortis, the first time he had seen anything like that. And in the hero's thoughts, there was only the thought of what would happen if he rejected death. The man extinguished his cigarette on Kim's neck. Soo-hyuk rolled his eyes in pain and thought. He thought about what kind of assessment he would receive in such a situation, and firmly decided that he needed to take revenge on Anna. The men who were supposed to finish him off stood there in complete shock from the resurrection they saw. The protagonist warned the group that they were approaching the main target. There was only one exit left out of 3. The main character ordered to block it and kill everyone. Kim noticed that there was no one left around him. This confused him. He felt a sense of déjà vu. Someone's hands grabbed him from behind his back, and his heart began to pound as if there was a spring trapped in his chest. It was Anna who hugged him so tightly that he felt very small in comparison to her. The girl said that he had also coped, whatever that meant. Welcome to hell. Soo-hyuk came to his senses in some unknown place, so he immediately began to look around to catch at least one familiar fragment. He saw the sea around him, ships, The hero woke up on a sea vessel. He was covered in blood and dirt. He didn't remember what happened to him. Everything was like a fog. Around Kim, there was a mountain of corpses of people unknown to him. He just sat without moving and tried to understand something or even remember something, as if his memory had been erased. Only the people from headquarters who arrived and introduced themselves brought him back to his senses. One of the men looked serious and asked Kim to come with him. Soo-hyuk was put in a car and driven off in an unknown direction. The protagonist could not contain his curiosity and asked the men about what really happened on that ship. The men replied that they were looking into it and suggested that Kim was probably tired after completing the mission. Kim tried to pretend that everything was fine, but nevertheless his soul was very uneasy. The driver warned that the journey would take quite a while, so it was time to rest. When the stranger turned around, Kim noticed he was wearing a gas mask and immediately realized they had released the gas. But it was too late to act. The hero tried to say something, but he couldn't utter words because he was suffocating. The man immediately dialed the number, apparently to report his catch. To his surprise, there was a detector on the other end of the line, which was informed that the experimental subject had been captured. He ordered that he be taken to the laboratory immediately. He couldn't wait to start the experiments. He was counting the minutes until his people arrived with Kim. He planned to start experiments immediately as soon as he received the body of a young man. Finally, they have it in their hands. The car with the main character arrived at the scene. The director joyfully ran out into the street, ordering all the researchers to gather. He constantly hurried the workers, shouting at them to move faster, because they had a lot of work. One of the scientists opened the trunk and was shocked by what he saw. He just didn't know how to tell the director about it, because he saw how he was in a hurry and impatiently waiting for his agent to do research. Instead of the main character, there were employees who were supposed to deliver Soo-hyuk. A sharp sound of a shot broke the silence. The people who were called here for experiments were frightened. The bullet hit the scientist in the head, and the measured atmosphere suddenly disappeared. All those present were killed in an instant, leaving only chaos and blood at the scene of the tragedy, with only one director remaining alive. The man was shaking with fear. He could not understand how this was even possible. He realized that now it would be he, the one on whom he wanted to conduct his experiments, who would come out of the car. Seeing him, the director's eyes filled with fear and horror, and drops of cold sweat began to run down his face. He started to run, ordering the employees who immediately arrived to destroy the hero. But the main character already knew by heart all the actions of the director's people and could easily resist them. He just stood there and waited for a whole team of armed guards to approach him. The protagonist shot the first of the attackers in the head. Blood splattered to the sides, painting the asphalt in bright shades of red. Two other officers caught in the line of fire are fatally wounded when bullets hit them in the forehead. He shot another in the arm. All his actions were correct and precise, as if no terrible events had happened to him that could deprive him of his strength. The battle had been going on for quite a long time, but Kim seemed to have not lost any strength. He destroyed every one of his opponents with literally one blow. In the midst of this chaos, one of the men, possessing dexterity and determination, successfully shoots the hero in the head. The bullet does not seriously harm him, and Kim rises as if nothing happened, continuing the fight with unwavering determination. He rises abruptly and continues the shootout. The man who shot was surprised by this, because he had definitely hit the hero in the head. Soo-hyuk took advantage of the situation and took the employee into captivity. The director's entire team was neutralized. The young man sat down in the car in order to find at least some information that could help him. He couldn't believe that the main character and his comrades had dedicated their entire lives to serving this country, and their director was sacrificing them. He already imagined how to deal with this worthless man. Pictures of exactly how he would take revenge on the director flashed before his eyes. He walked, stepping over all the people he had killed and thinking only about how he would still show how dangerous an abandoned mongrel can be. The second or third death happened to the agent, but he remained alive. But he was sure of one thing, that as an agent he had to get information and get rid of the enemy. At that moment, Kim was absolutely sure that his main enemy was the director. The press director babbled in front of the young man. The guy pointed a gun at him, but the man began to promise that it would help the main character during the promotion. Soo-hyuk mercilessly shot him in the leg. Kim ordered the director to shut up and answer his questions. The director began to mumble, thereby not giving a precise answer. This enraged the hero, and he shot again, but in the other leg. The man explained that Kim dies and comes back to life. All his wounds heal quickly. Just like some of Anna's minions. They are very young, but have already conquered the top in Japan, apparently all because of their skill. The director wanted to get it and study in detail how such a property works. They sent so many agents, but in the end they didn't get the information, and they killed everyone. Then the plan changed. It was decided to send not stupid kids, but a proven agent, and their choice fell on Kim. Anna just returned to Korea, and the hero was able to obtain her skill. Henceforth, even during dangerous operations, he will be protected. The director started talking about how Soo-hyuk was now their hero, but the agent shot him in the shoulder. Since it was strange to hear praise after everything the director had done, The man began to scream in pain. He had told everything and did not understand why the hero was shooting. The director simply used Kim as a rat for his experiments. The more corpses, the more information can be obtained. All the agents died because of the man's pity. The main character's partners could also survive. The director advised the young man to forget about his old strength. The man began to explain that this is an agent's job, and that everyone takes a risk when they take on a mission. The director was outraged, saying that the agents knew they could die while carrying out the mission, and Kim was receiving rewards for it. At that moment, Soo-hyuk kicked the man in the face. The main character ordered the director to shut up. He could not hear another word from him. The hero took out a knife, saying that the man should feel the same pain as all the killed agents. The director begged Soo-hyuk to put down the knife. Reinforcements arrived just in time for the director, and the people from the car shouted for the hero to drop his weapon. The man was indignant that they had only come now. The soldiers pointed their guns at the main character. There were definitely at least 100 of them, and all the guns were pointed towards Kim. He understood perfectly well the danger of this situation, and thought that it would be good to take shelter somewhere. Soo-hyuk started running in the opposite direction, hoping that he would be able to escape quickly. The hero was immediately shot at. Soo-hyuk's body was covered with multiple bullet wounds. Unable to withstand such a number of wounds, the hero collapsed to the ground. The director found it funny how the main character pretended to be dead. The man shouted that they would lock him up and drain his blood, and if he is reborn whole and unharmed, then he will simply kill the hero again and again. A mysterious figure appeared out of nowhere, called out to the director, and immediately laughed. An unknown figure stood in front of them with his head down, and asked whether it was Kim Soo-hyuk or not. The director remained silent, as he did not understand who was in front of him, and for what purpose he was also looking for an agent. The girl introduced herself as Ayaka, and said that she was the 7th leader of the Nanayama-gumi. The man ordered to kill her immediately. The girl moved lightning fast behind the backs of the people with weapons. The soldiers were greatly inferior to her in strength and speed, and they were amazed by the girl's agility. For a few seconds they had no idea where the girl was because of her rapid movements. But then she appeared right in front of the army commander-in-chief's face. He saw a girl with long pink hair. The leader of the army ordered everyone to line up and fire at will. Ayaka managed to deflect the bullets with her blades. She did everything too quickly and skillfully that the soldiers shooting at her simply had no chance. The girl cut one of the soldiers in half. Another bullet flew in her direction, but it was all to no avail. The girl blocked the bullet again, reacting very quickly. She was incredible in her appearance and looked completely invincible. The shooting guys seemed to be a little scared of Ayaka's capabilities. She destroyed the soldiers one by one, and dealt with them in different ways. Severed heads were flying to the ground. It looked like she played this game every day. Having dealt with all the soldiers, she stood opposite the director. Their gazes intersected. The director thought that Ayaka was a real monster, but his thoughts were interrupted by the same fate as the soldier. The girl cut the director's head in half. Ayaka walked over to Kim, who was lying on the ground and looked dead. She asked him if he was Kim Soo-hyuk and told him that Anna had asked him to bring him to her. The hero jumped up. He was furious just from the name of this girl who brought him so much suffering and torment. Ayaka clarified that she was ordered not just to bring the hero, but to drag him. A brutal fight broke out between them. It was not for life, but for death. It was hard to resist the girl because Kim lost a lot of blood during the shootout. The girl admitted during their battle that the hero was a pretty good fighter, but the guy understood that he wouldn't be able to hold out for long, because he really was practically exhausted. And Ayaka's strength seemed to increase with each blow. Kim thought that there was only one way out of this situation. The girl again noted that the hero was holding up well. She was a little surprised. The girl shouted that it was time to end the battle and pierced him with her katana. Kim suddenly grabbed the girl's hand, and his strength returned. At this point, he couldn't quickly figure out what he was going to do. The girl in front of him became just a silhouette to him, but he understood that he was planning to cut off Ayaka's head. Everything around turned into some strange shadows. The guy realized that he clearly remembered the moment when he finally carried out his plan. He fell motionless, and a familiar picture appeared in his head. Kim remembered how Anna instantly healed the wound on her neck that he left on her and got scared. But nevertheless, the girl with pink hair lay decapitated not far from him. His head was spinning badly. Kim couldn't get up. He even thought that this was his end. Kim woke up and saw Ayaka in front of him holding her head by the hair. He looked at everything that was happening in bewilderment, and again could not believe his eyes. The girl put the head back in place and it immediately regenerated. Now Ayaka understood why Anna wanted to get the main character, and immediately pierced him with her katana. Ayaka suggested that the hero sleep, warning that when he wakes up, Anna will be nearby. Now he had to calm down. Ayaka monitored the hero's condition all night. There was almost no blood left. It was necessary to return quickly. The girl extended her hand in order to pull her weapon out of Kim's body, but surprise appeared in her eyes. She didn't understand where the agent got the strength to stay on his feet. The guy jumped up and wanted to fight her again, but resistance was useless. The girl instantly cut off Kim's hand, which flew to the side. But even before she finished speaking, she immediately received a blow to the face. Ayaka flew very far away. She clearly did not expect such a reaction and behavior. The main character's recovery speed was insane. Ayaka's mask was broken and scattered in all directions. She had a hard time dodging his attacks. He was unexpectedly fast and strong, especially for someone who had been unconscious just a couple of minutes ago. Kim bit the girl's hand with his teeth, just as he had bitten Anna's neck. He began to greedily drink her blood. His eyes became bloodshot, as if someone had possessed him. At this rate, he would drink all the blood, despite the fact that the girl tried to fight off Kim. It was as if a strong electric shock had passed through Ayaka's body. She herself did not understand what was happening to the main character. But Kim continued to drink blood from the girl's hand, and seemed to have no intention of stopping. Ayaka had no choice but to cut off her own hand. She couldn't think of any other way out. The girl could not understand what the main character was. She looked at him in bewilderment and waited to see what he would do next. And Kim at that moment just stood and screamed in an inhuman voice. Suddenly more people with weapons appeared. Unknown people surrounded the girl and started shooting. One of the bullets hit her right in the shoulder, and it started smoking. A girl appeared on the horizon. She walked straight towards Ayaka and read a prayer, and then said that 2 new people had been sent to her. As the silhouette got closer, Ayaka was able to see the girl's face. She had short dark hair and an evil smile. People started shooting on the orders of their boss and aimed specifically at the legs. Kim suddenly pounced on them, covering Ayaka with his body. Ayaka even thought that now they seemed to be on the same team with the main character. The dark-haired woman ordered them to stop, not to stop, but to change their weapon to something more powerful. The men took out huge guns and started shooting at Kim. His entire back was riddled with bullets, and their size was shocking. The bullets passed through one after another. The discharge ran through Kim's entire body, but he still held on and stood on his feet. Ayaka just lay next to me and was afraid to move, even though I wanted to help somehow. The sun began to rise, its rays falling on the girl with pink hair. For some reason, Ayaka felt severe pain when direct sunlight hit her skin. The dark-haired girl asked how much pain the sun's rays were causing Ayaka, and she said that the fire of hell will be twice as hot, and that what is happening now is all small stuff. Ayaka was extremely indignant, her eyes were bloodshot, but having gathered her strength, she was able to object, and asked how this unknown girl dared to look down on her. The woman stepped on Ayaka's hand with incredible force, almost crushing it. After this, Ayaka could not utter a word and simply looked at the woman. The dark-haired woman yelled at Ayaka to stop talking nonsense, and she warned that today she was going to kill all her friends. Her attention was drawn to some sounds. She turned her head to see if she had misheard anything. It was Kim, who seemed to have risen from the dead again. The woman was very surprised by this. She could not believe that even after her weapon and the fight with her, he was able to get up. But what was most surprising was that he was fine under the sun, unlike Ayaka. The pink-haired girl had a good opportunity to escape, which she took advantage of. Jumping up from her place, she rushed to flee, which also surprised the woman who attacked them. But she was in the sun, so if the girl went in pursuit, she wouldn't last long. She was distracted from her thoughts by the screams of her subordinates who were attacked by Kim. The guy just wouldn't die. It seemed like after each death he only became stronger. The girl ordered everyone to retreat as she noticed fear in the eyes of her subordinates. She quickly attacked the hero. She wanted to check for herself what Kim was capable of. She was convinced that this form of his was even stronger than the previous one. Kim put his hand forward. This way he was able to stop her sword. The girl's arm, which had been cut off earlier, has already been restored. She was able to dodge the blow and a smile was visible on her face. The woman was pleased that she didn't run after Ayaka, and now she could fight the agent again. With a fairly powerful blow, she threw the main character into the wall. It's hard not to notice someone like him. His collision with the wall even sent sparks flying. Could he have hidden so well that the woman still didn't know anything about him? The dust cleared and she saw the protagonist drinking blood right in the middle of the fight. He grabbed one of the woman's already killed assistants and greedily drank blood straight from his neck. The dark-haired woman thought that she needed to immediately finish off this beast. After finishing his drink, Soo-hyuk threw the headless body back onto the ground. White smoke began to pour out of his mouth and nose. Kim screamed, as if something was tearing him apart from the inside. The woman was sure that he would now pounce on her and the battle between them would be legendary. She herself shouted at Kim to attack first. Her eyes were shining. She was ready for anything. But the guy fell lifelessly to the ground. Probably this was his next death. The woman was confused and did not understand why this happened, since he had just gained new strength thanks to the blood. There was complete silence on the battlefield. Suddenly the main character began to hear someone calling him and with difficulty, but still managed to open his eyes. The leader stood in front of him. Although Kim could see him poorly, he was still not himself. The man asked the hero how he felt and if everything was okay with him. Next to the leader stood the same dark-haired woman with whom he had fought. The main character asked the girl who she was and what was going on. Kim was chained to a column with thick chains, and the thought occurred to him that something similar had happened to him before. The girl asked him to listen carefully to everything she would tell him. They were wondering what to do about his behavior since he is a vampire. The woman warned him that a decision had been made to get rid of him. Kim could not believe what he heard. The main character openly laughed at her words, because he was convinced that vampires did not exist. The girl grabbed him by the chin. She bit her finger so hard that a drop of blood began to run down her hand. The guy was overcome by an irresistible thirst. His eyes lit up. He wanted to take a sip. He began to try to break the chain that bound him to the column. Before his eyes, there was only that very drop of blood from the woman's finger. The main character came out of this terrible state, but it was hard for him to fully come to his senses. In this way, the woman demonstrated that he really was a vampire. The hero still could not comprehend what had just happened. He could not believe it. The leader stood nearby and confirmed absolutely every word, even though it was something supernatural. They got a video of what Soo-hyuk did. Hundreds of corpses were found. Kim couldn't believe that this was his doing. He was shaking and flushed from what he heard. The girl was amazed by the hero's recklessness. How he could accept the task of eliminating Anna without even understanding what she was. The hero asked if she knew right away that Anna was also a vampire. Of course she knew. It was the job of the Vatican's death squad to kill vampires. According to the plan, Kim was supposed to be killed too, but he gets a chance as an exception. The girl laughed and said something about the guy becoming her dog. As she understood, they had one enemy, so there was no point in wasting their forces. She wanted to kill Anna along with Kim. Some people are getting rid of cartels, some are suppressing the mafia. Anna scolded Ayaka for not being able to handle Kim, whom she called a bug. The girl asked for forgiveness with all her might, but there was no point in it. Anna was disappointed with Ayaka's failure and said that the girl could not be relied upon. Snow White gave the girl her blood to drink. Her body was restored. It regenerated before our eyes, although a couple of minutes ago, all the parts of the girl's body were scattered around the room. Ayaka was given one last chance. She was ordered to bring the agent to Anna. The girl could not let her mistress down, and having gathered her strength, she went in search of him. But she didn't know that she was being watched constantly. Who exactly is unknown. Kim was riding in a car with the boss and the girl. He was immersed in his thoughts. It was strange for him to be in such a state. The girl got a little bored on the way and started asking Soo-hyuk various questions. One of the questions was a choice: would she kill him as a vampire, or would they eliminate Anna together? The man asked the hero to be careful. Soo-hyuk killed the agent from the higher-ups, so they will have no choice but to kill him. The agent thought about the chief's words. He was still trying to understand if he was doing the right thing. The girl asked whether Kim had realized that he was a vampire or not yet. The main character turned to the girl. He was interested in why she took him. Without her, all forces would be against Kim, so it's better to take the chance and take revenge. But he wasn't sure that they could trust him after everything that had happened, which is what he asked the woman. She laughed and said that of course she wouldn't trust Soo-hyuk. But the enemy of her enemy is her ally, and that's enough for now. The car drove past the main abode of the girl's detachment, the sanctuary. Its appearance slightly confused the hero. This sanctuary looked like an ordinary temple. They rode on. Their goal was ahead. The sanctuary is protected by holy relics, so the hero won't be able to get there anyway. Even though Kim Soo-hyuk is now a member of the special forces, right now he is just dinner for Anna. Therefore, he will be treated with special care. The girl will personally coordinate him. In other words, the main character will have to live with her. This hotel is a partner of the special forces. No records are left about the residents here. The girl introduced herself as a member of the Vatican's secret squad. Her name was Miro. Kim also decided to introduce her just in case, although he understood perfectly well that she knew everything herself. Miro understood that Kim had a lot of questions, so she was ready to answer them. Soo-hyuk asked to tell him more about vampires, because these thoughts did not give him peace. The girl thought that he was apparently beginning to understand what was happening and was ready to listen to the truth. Vampires are creatures that can live forever by feeding only on human blood. Their bodies are many times superior to human ones. At the moment, only Anna carries the blood of the ancient vampires. And Kim remembered that when they first met, he bit Snow White, and that was probably when it all happened. The main character immediately asked how they could be killed. Miro said that they could die under the sun's rays, reminding them of Ayaka's torment under the sun. But Kim was an exception, which is why Anna targeted him. This can be used as an advantage to get to her. But Soo-hyuk needs to become stronger, and Miro will help him with this. She decided to train him. She asked if the agent understood why he had been taken away. The main character was well aware that they were afraid of him. And in this situation, such cooperation was beneficial to everyone. He doesn't die under the sun, so he can become the strongest vampire. It's too dangerous to leave, but too useful for killing. So Miro came up with a pretext with a common enemy, and when she decides that Kim is dangerous, she will get rid of him. It's not for nothing that he was called the best agent, but he is a vampire, and the special forces have one job. Despite this, Miro really wanted to train the hero and kill Anna, and said that he could always express dissatisfaction if something was wrong. Soo-hyuk has already died several times. He doesn't care how to kill Anna. He is not going to give up without a fight. He is determined. He understood the hidden subtext, but said everything directly. The main character is still ready to follow Miro, which means he was only interested in revenge. After the conversation ended, Miro offered Soo-hyuk dinner. Namely, she offered to bite her on the neck. Kim didn't understand why she was asking for this so suddenly. Whether she likes it or not, Kim is a vampire, and when they lack blood, it becomes difficult for them to move, and they are ready to attack everyone at the sight of blood. He doesn't want to kill innocent people. Soo-hyuk stood up and slowly walked towards the girl, but for a long time he could not do what Miro suggested to him. Her neck was already stiff, waiting for Kim to take action. The main character still bit the girl. A strong thirst took hold of him. He sank his teeth into the neck and understood that this was exactly what he was missing. He drank blood and thought of nothing else at that moment. The thirst for blood was stronger than his thoughts. But still, some pictures began to appear before my eyes. He remembered the image of Anna. She said that this was her plan. The agent was surprised that only such thoughts could quench his thirst. He became scared. Soo-hyuk pushed Miro away from him abruptly. It seemed like he had had enough. Apparently, a strong desire for blood is the vampire instinct. The girl sat down on the bed, as she had lost a lot of blood, and now she needed rest too. Miro warned that they would have a lot to do from tomorrow. The girl lay down under the blanket and suggested that Kim go to bed quickly. But she warned him beforehand that if he started acting up, she would definitely kill Soo-hyuk. Now the hero has to drink people's blood every day. He was sure that he had to do it for revenge. Although his body is now a vampire, his mind is still intact, and he remembered his brothers, whom Anna killed. Kim was determined to send her to hell. The main character lay down on the bed next to Miro and tried to fall asleep quickly. But thoughts were constantly spinning in his head. He was thinking about vampires, and about Anna, and in general about everything that happened to him. Miro, opening her eyes, realized through her sleep that this vampire had laid down next to her. This greatly embarrassed the girl, and she began to worry a little. It's obvious that there's another room nearby, thought Miro. But perhaps she didn't warn him that there was a bed there too. And yet how he lay down so easily next to her. The brunette lay in bewilderment. Miro is a priestess of the god, but now she is lying in bed with an adult man. It was beyond her understanding how she could allow this. The girl turned to look at him to see if he was planning something terrible. It seemed that by that moment the guy was already asleep, which made her feel calmer. Miro closed her eyes and began to try to fall asleep, but it wasn't working out very well. She decided that the first thing she needed to do was calm down. She crossed her arms and began to say a prayer, and didn't notice how, under stress, she began to speak louder and louder. Turning over on his side, his hand fell on Miro's body. She was in a panic, not understanding whether he was awake or just tossing and turning in his sleep. Blushing, the girl realized that everything was fine. The guy was sleeping. The girl started the morning by telling the hero how to kill vampires. Regular weapons don't work on them. Kim listened to her attentively. There was a handprint from the girl on his cheek. She had accidentally slapped him in the face out of fear that night. Miro told about 2 ways to kill vampires. One of them is light. The second is silver. They feel pain even from a light touch. Therefore, a vampire can only be killed with a silver blade, which is why Ayaka survived that time. Kim decided to apologize to Miro for yesterday, although she was sure that he did not remember anything like that. The girl felt even more awkward and immediately hit the hero. Kim didn't understand what this crazy girl was doing. She sternly ordered him not to talk nonsense and gradually began to calm down in order to continue her story. Soo-hyuk's basic skills are developed, so Miro decided to start right away. For him, the most important thing is to train with someone other than people. From now on, Kim will train as a special forces agent and feed on blood like a vampire, all of which will make him stronger. The lesson began. Miro ordered to get ready. The girl strikes the first blow, and the main character manages to cover himself. The hero truly believed that there were no people stronger than him and his brothers. However, Kim was just a frog who knew only his own pond and unfortunately did not pay attention to anyone else. No matter how painful his path was, he had to endure it. The hero was sure that he would get out even from hell. However, he fell to the ground from the girl's blow. He's a dark agent. He should succeed. After so much time, Kim finally started to succeed. Miro even praised him for his success. But there was still a lot of work to be done. Soo-hyuk understood that very well. An excited man ran into the hall. He was in a hurry to report some information to the brunette. Miro asked what happened, because she asked that no one interfere with their training. The man reported that the girl urgently needed to go to the sanctuary. Miro realized that something important had happened, because she wouldn't have been called to this place for nothing. The girl ordered Kim to wait for her there, warning that she would return soon. Upon arriving at the place, the girl asked why she was needed there. She was ready to hear anything, so there was no strong emotion in her eyes, but even the opposite. The man could not explain exactly the reason for calling the girl, since he himself did not know. Miro had a guess. Only they can call her so urgently. Everyone got into the car and drove off in an unknown direction at high speed. The car that Miro left in was being watched by a vampire, the same girl who was watching Ayaka. Actually, a certain gang was also trying to find Soo-hyuk. They finally found him. Arriving at the sanctuary, Miro introduced herself as a bishop. The girl asked why the meeting was taking place in the sanctuary on a bench in the shade, was a member of a special squad subordinate to the Vatican. The man said it was an honor to meet Miro in person. He thanked the girl for all her efforts. But turning around abruptly, he suggested putting aside pleasantries and getting straight to the point of the meeting. He asked directly in a serious voice about the vampire who was now with Miro, as if the man himself did not believe what he was asking. A man approached the administrator of the hotel where Kim was staying. The hero said dryly that he was registering, to which the administrator began asking standard questions about the availability of identity documents. The administrator also, with a smile on his face, as was typical of his position, asked how many people would be with him. The man reached into the inside pocket of his jacket, as if he wanted to provide documents, but at the same moment replied that there would be many guests with him. He took a knife out of his pocket, and only then finished speaking, stating the number of people, about 200. With a quick movement, he caught the administrator, which of course scared all the hotel staff. The young man from the reception was lying on the floor with a knife sticking right out of his head. The visitors rushed to run away from this place. One of Miro's men ordered the civilians to be evacuated and reported to the command center, while he himself would deal with the killer. Of course, he regretted a little that he decided to deal with everything that was happening on his own. He clearly needed help, and at that very moment he heard the roar of cars. The building's panoramic windows were shattered. Unfortunately, help came to the killer. Both teams were determined, but all that was left was to start the fight. Miro's man stabbed one of the invaders. The wound on the man's body quickly healed, just as it happened with vampires. Ayaka's voice was heard from among the crowd of wild people. She said indifferently that she had finally found Kim. She was convinced that Soo-hyuk was somewhere here and gave the order to bring him. Ayaka's entire team, as if under hypnosis, rushed to clear out the hotel building in order to find the guy that the pink-haired girl needed so much as quickly as possible. Ayaka turned to the vampire who found the hero and told her that she would be able to join them once she destroyed the command center. This girl was a blonde with a short haircut, the same one who was chasing both Kim and Miro. She asked if Ayaka would feed her well when everything was over. The girl answered positively. The vampire was the sixth head of the Nanayama-gumi Koko. Koko rushed to her task. She ran somehow strangely, like an ox or a dog on all fours. Since Miro is not here, all that remains is to deal with the minor bosses. Just in case, the girl even brought subordinates who use this. They should not make a mistake. But at that very moment, a huge surprise appeared in Ayaka's eyes. The girl was shocked. All the people inside were dead. The girl began to think that they all had to be bishops, but her thoughts were interrupted by a man's voice. It was Soo-hyuk who told her that they hadn't seen each other for a long time and peeked out from around the corner. Miro was still in the sanctuary and continued her conversation with the Special Forces member. The man could not judge their decisions, but he would like to hear the details at the next meeting. After 3 months of constant surveillance, no threat was identified against the protagonist, and he was trained in a special unit. But Miro herself was not sure whether Kim would lead them to salvation or to the end. What luck, the main character was looking for Ayaka himself. He offered to end it today, his eyes filled with blood and rage towards the girl. Soo-hyuk's skills amazed Ayaka. This couldn't be happening. She had only one question. What had he been doing all this time? His strength had become much greater than it had been during the previous fight. Kim struck and cut the girl one after another, and she held on with all her strength. The guy grabbed Ayaka by the neck like a stray cat and was about to repay her with her own words. The girl could no longer resist. Soo-hyuk simply threw her from side to side. He wanted to deliver the finishing blow and raised his katana. The girl's eyes were filled with fear and it seemed like humility. There were a couple of millimeters left to Ayak's face. The blade was supposed to pierce the girl's face in a millisecond. She couldn't understand why the main character stopped. Kim couldn't move. It was incomprehensible to him. This had never happened before. But somewhere behind, a female voice was heard. Besides the girl, there were somehow snakes in the room, and the entire space was enveloped in a green fog. Katarina was the fifth head of the Nanayama-gumi. This is her ability, the hero thought. But he still stood motionless. Now he was unable to resist. Ayaka jumped up from her seat and rushed towards the girl, shouting for her to quickly destroy the main character. Katarina asked her to calm down. She was going to do it anyway. The girl directed her snakes at Ayaka. They twisted the girl with incredible force. Kim was surprised that the two girls were not allies. He thought that everyone who was against him should have been together. Katarina had long wanted to get herself a toy, and laughing, she added that it wasn't just any toy, but one that couldn't be broken. No matter how beautiful people are, they still die or become disfigured. Katarina wanted to find a vampire man, but she didn't think it would happen so quickly. The girl began to call Kim to her. The knife fell from his hands and his legs seemed to begin to listen to the girl's orders. Soo-hyuk's body moved on its own. Now he was in slavery to the fifth head of the Nanayama-gumi. Ayaka began to get indignant. Anna might find out about this, but Snow White allowed Katarina to use it as she wanted after she was captured, and she ordered the useless friend to be removed. The girl couldn't believe that Anna actually said that, because she trusted her. Ayaka's eyes grew heavier and finally she passed out. Katarina approached the unconscious girl and scolded her for having suffered with this matter for several months. The The girl gave the order to her snake to kill Ayaka. Suddenly, Coco appeared in the room screaming and yelling. The girl appeared out of nowhere and ran around at breakneck speed. Having calmed down, Coco happily informed Ayaka that she had finished the job. She was probably expecting praise and lunch, as she had promised her. But upon closer inspection, she noticed that Ayaka was unconscious, and her mood had changed abruptly. Coco rushed to Ayaka and started shouting at her to wake up quickly, because there was good news. Katarina said that the main character did this to Ayaka, which made Coco angry. Soo-hyuk thought that there were now even more enemies, and each one was causing more problems than he could handle. Katarina suggested going back to Anna, since she had already captured Soo-hyuk, but Coco decided to clarify once again who exactly did this to Ayaka. Coco wasn't as stupid as she seemed. She was angered by the blatant lie. The body of the friend smelled like the blood of the 5th chapter. Katarina didn't expect such insight from silly Coco. Little Ayaka sat in the room and cried. She wanted to go home to her mother. A strange voice made her raise her head. A girl approached her and introduced herself as Coco. After a short pause, she extended her hand to little Ayaka with a smile and invited her to be friends. The girl came to. She was still lying on the floor and her motor functions had not returned. After looking around a bit, she noticed that Kim was sitting next to her. He had probably already more or less recovered from Katarina's poison. The girl was surprised that the hero managed to get rid of the Green Witch's magic. After all, his super fast recovery is on another level. At this time, Coco was fighting with Katarina's snakes. It was an intense battle full of unexpected turns. From the outside, it seemed that their confrontation was almost equal in strength. Katarina naturally did not take part in this herself. She only directed her snakes one by one towards Coco. In a way unknown to everyone, the girl grabbed the snake and tore its mouth apart. She held up very well, but she still didn't have an advantage. Kim and Ayaka, meanwhile, began a dialogue, assuming that Coco would not be able to defeat Katarina alone. The snakes and poison will make it difficult to reach the body, and it loses energy, which means its speed decreases. Ayaka was worried about her. Having put in a lot of effort, she stood up. At this rate, Coco would die, and the girl wanted to help her friend. "In this form, you will only get in the way," said the main character. He suggested that they unite against Katarina. The three of them could whitewash her, but Ayaka immediately objected, because he had just wanted to kill her. In this situation, this is the best way out. But Ayaka couldn't trust Soo-hyuk. They had been fighting for a long time and were always on opposite sides of the battle. Since there was nothing to be done in this situation, the hero decided to take out a knife. Katarina used so many skills and just wasted her blood. And I thought about how this hated Coco, as usual, was getting in the way, causing chaos. Why Katarina couldn't get hold of the girl? She didn't understand after all. Coco couldn't get rid of the poison so quickly. Was she just holding her breath? The Green Witch realized that her powers had failed this time, and had already calculated in her head that in a split second she would take a powerful blow. Katarina was thrown aside by the shockwave. Coco, although she looked harmless at first glance, had more than enough strength. A large hole appeared in the wall, from which poison was quickly coming out. Coco said she had just nearly died, gasping for air. The girl began to look around in search of her friend, for whom she had fought so hard. Having found her friend, Coco wanted to rush to her. She saw that Kim was sitting next to her. But the picture before her eyes began to swim, and the girl couldn't move. Feeling dehydrated, she collapsed to the ground, green veins beginning to appear on her face and arms. One of Katarina's snakes was still able to inject its poison. It firmly clung to Coco's leg and sucked out all her strength and energy. It was impossible to underestimate Katarina. The 5th chapter managed to survive. Walking on the shards of glass, she began to approach. Did Coco really think she could handle her? Katarina promised the girl to send her into eternity, straight into the belly of his snake, along with his girlfriend. At the last moment, something pounced on the snake and cut it into 2 pieces. It was Ayaka. They are always together even without eternity. A smile appeared on Coco's face again. She was delighted with her friend, and at the same time very glad that she was still alive. Katarina was surprised how the girl managed to get rid of the poison, because only she and Anna were capable of this. Soo-hyuk, by suggesting to fight together and taking out a knife while Coco and Katarina were busy fighting, knew exactly what needed to be done. Ayaka, scared that the guy would try to kill her again, lay on the floor. The main character stabbed his hand with a knife. He said that someone told him that the enemy of my enemy is my friend, and that is enough for now. Ayaka gave her all, but she was betrayed, and now she could lose her friend. The main character extended his hand to the girl so that she could drink his blood. Ayaka saw the image of Coco before her eyes. She also extended her hand to her when they met. Thanks to this, she was able to trust Kim. The scariest people are those who have nothing to lose. Now they were a real team, and with their combined efforts, they simply had to deal with Katarina and her green snake venom. Who would dare try to kill them? A man ran into the sanctuary where Miro was standing and making excuses for the vampire being with them now. Having caught his breath after a long run, he reported that trouble had happened. Several vampires had broken into the hotel. Ayaka previously revealed that Katarina can transform into a snake and control snakes. She said that if you get bitten by a snake or inhale a cloud of poison, your body will be paralyzed. Or worse, the body will be controlled by Katarina herself, and nothing will be possible to do about it. Fortunately, the effect of the poison cloud is not so long-lasting. It gradually neutralizes itself. Needing to get closer to Katarina, Kim began to make his way through the densely populated square with snakes. There were too many of them, and it seemed like with every minute there were tens, maybe even hundreds of times more. And all of Katarina's snakes were aimed at Kim alone, but it was impossible to give up. The hero struck one of the snakes, plunging a silver blade straight into its snout. The remaining bunch of snakes were ready to tear Kim apart, because they were also one whole. Ayaka appeared and shouted that they urgently needed to get together and work together. Abilities consume blood, so it can't last forever. Katarina wants to exhaust them. Ayaka will somehow deal with the snakes, and Kim must help Coco now. The main character ran to help the girl. She lay on the ground, exhausted, exposed to the smoke of the Green Witch. Soo-hyuk explained that they had entered into a temporary alliance. His blood would neutralize the poison. He held out his cut hand, which was bleeding, and told her to drink. The girl agreed, but even if she had been against it, she would not have been able to do anything, since her entire body was paralyzed. Having gained strength thanks to Kim's blood, she immediately punched the hero in the face. With a sharp jump, she jumped on top of Soo-hyuk. The guy thought that she was still under Katarina's control, since she was behaving so strangely. After all, they had agreed to be on a team. The girl happily started calling her friend. She wanted to tell her that Soo-hyuk had been caught, but Ayaka explained to her that the situation had now changed, and they must join forces to confront Katarina. The girl looked at the hero indifferently and ran to her friend. This was Katarina's perfect plan. Use these two incompetents to find Soo-hyuk. But he was not only able to neutralize the poison, but also helped them and turned it against the witch. Katarina firmly decided to take the main character to her place. Katarina rushed at her opponents with renewed vigor, directing her merciless snakes towards them. She spread a poisonous cloud over the heroes, which paralyzes the body when inhaled. The main character gave the command for everyone to hold their breath. Ayaka said the cloud would clear soon, but she needed a smokescreen. Katarina wants to kill one of them, and he is hardly a hero. Katarina aimed her snakes at Coco. She was angry that poor Coco dared to touch her. She would have to kill her first. She simply watched everyone, directing her brethren towards the girl. But with a quick and precise jump towards her friend, Ayaka covered Coco with herself. The three began to work together as a team, the protagonist cutting off the heads of the snakes that had captured the girl. Kim wanted to share blood with Ayaka to help her fight back, but it was too late. Turning around, he saw that he had missed one of Katarina's blows. The silver blade entered the girl's chest, and scarlet drops of blood began to flow down her body. Ayaka was an ordinary little girl, no different from her friends of the same age, but their family lived quite poorly, so much so that one ordinary day, the mother handed the girl over to some man and ordered her to obey him. Her mother sold her for a piece of bread. The girl couldn't believe it. How could this be? And why do people abandon those they love? The man wanted to introduce the girl to his new friend. He told Ayaka that she could refer to this friend as Red, and he suggested that she try to become friends with him, after which he inserted an IV into the vein of her right arm. Each time this procedure occurred, the girl's body broke from the inside. Little by little, all the children who were with her at that time began to change, and gradually everyone began to die, which really scared the little girl. Ayaka was scared. She even thought that it would be better if she died sooner too. She raised her head when she heard the voice. Coco walked up to her and extended her hand, offering to be friends. Now the girls spent a lot of time together, chatting and enjoying the fact that they were no longer alone. The girl was surprised that being in such hell, Coco could smile. Ayaka began to smile along with her, because the support at that moment was very important for both of them. They were constantly injected with an unknown drug. Every day was like hell. Each time their body ached more and more. But together they could endure anything. They became one in these terrible conditions. The man who conducted the experiments reported that subjects with different dosages should be isolated from each other. Control group on the left, experimental group on the right. The girls began to be taken away to different cells. They could not hold back their tears, because they were each other's only happiness. Ayaka threw her sweater to Coco and promised that she would find it. The girls tried to escape until the very end, but obviously, due to their age, the men who separated them into different cells were much stronger. The girl hugged the sweater to herself and believed that they would definitely meet again. A few years later, Ayaka was given another room. Entering her new habitat, Ayaka saw her friend sitting on the cold floor, staring blankly at the bare wall. The girl rushed to Coco. She was very happy to see her, because after so many years she had lost all hope for their reunion. Coco turned to look at the girl. Her eyes were shining and it was clear that she did not remember her friend. Ayaka was terrified, because she had been looking forward to their meeting for so many years. "I want to be friends with you," she said tenderly. Ayaka decided that in this way she would be able to return her friend's memory. Coco saved her then. Now it was her turn. They were able to survive this hell, but now one of them is physically weaker, the other mentally. The rest of Anna's vampires were not happy with this addition, and so a new hell began. Ayaka trained a lot. She tried her best. If she doesn't live up to expectations, she will be disposed of. All her efforts were only to stay with Coco, because Ayaka had no one else, and she simply could not allow herself to lose her again. She had to go through a lot of humiliation, but the girl did not give up. Now she was dying again, but she could only see before her eyes the moment when Kim pierced his hand with a knife in the name of saving the girl. She thought about how Anna had promised to help her, but her words were always lies, and she was throwing dust in the eyes of all her subordinates. For the first time, she realized that even though she was the main character's enemy, she still felt the same friendly energy from him as she did from her friend when he extended a helping hand to her. The thought that she was not alone and that there were those next to her who could helped her open her eyes a little, and she saw in front of her the silhouette of those who were helping her. But there was still a blade sticking out of her chest, preventing her from breathing properly. Even though she was the hero's enemy who had committed so much dirt, Ayaka knew perfectly well that she was doing wrong. The girl took off her mask and asked Kim to listen to her carefully. Soo-hyuk swam in anticipation of the words. He was counting on the fact that Ayaka would still get up now. Raising herself a little, she gently stretched her lips towards the hero. This was a sign of gratitude, since she no longer had the strength to say anything. Having let go of the main character, Ayaka fell to the ground again and seemed to take her last breath. Poor Coco was running around her, unable to find a place for herself. She couldn't forgive herself for allowing herself to share them with her friend again. Not for the first time. But Ayaka could still hear everything that was happening around her, and having gathered her strength, whispered that they would always be together. Coco sat next to her friend. She couldn't allow it. Ayaka's body dissolved. The only trace left that hinted at her existence in this world was her clothes. Coco let out a piercing scream. She began to try to understand where the body had gone. Did vampires really just disappear when they died? Coco began to rummage through her friend's things, hoping that she was just imagining things due to stress. But when the girl realized that Ayaka was no more and would never be, she howled like a wolf into the sky. Poor Coco screamed so loudly that it seemed like all the glass was about to crack. Katarina smiled, saying that Ayaka had wasted her whole life on her friend, and that she had died because of her. But Coco couldn't even hear what the witch was saying because of her tears and cries for help. The girl asked if the heroes understood that resistance was useless. She called them to Anna and promised to spare them, unlike the others. But the main character began to talk to himself. In his words, he addressed Ayaka. He said that he understood everything. He understood what he needed to do. And before his eyes was a picture of their kiss. It was not just like that, Ayaka, although she could not speak much. But through this action, she tried to convey her thoughts to Kim. Katarina stood there in confusion and asked him what he was talking about to himself. She didn't understand. Katarina became a little nervous, sensing that something was wrong.
"Bring Ayaka back! Bring her back to life!" screamed the enraged Coco.
Her eyes were bloodshot. She was already ready to tear Katarina apart single-handedly. The girl rushed to attack, despite the fact that she understood the inequality of their forces. Katarina was only glad of such actions. A beam of light appeared and threw her back. But this was not the work of the enemy. She had not yet managed to do anything. A special squad burst into the room. They finally arrived. Kim was pleased with the outcome, but still a little angry that they hadn't come to the rescue earlier when it was really needed. Noticing a girl at the head, the hero was glad to see Miro. He told the girl that Coco was not their enemy, since the attack was directed specifically at her. But then the hero noticed a bullet flying straight at him. Soo-hyuk managed to dodge in time. He felt the whistle of the shells passing by his ears. He couldn't understand why they were shooting at him. The girl was surprised by the number of vampires and at the same time seemed happy, promising to definitely clean everything up here. Strike with sacred power. Crosses in the pupils of the eyes. Katarina, noticing all these details, understood who decided to visit them. It was definitely a bishop. The female bishop approached Katarina, reporting that a special squad had attacked the hotel. Katarina loved power, especially when it was directed at her. She was simply delighted that her opponents were now a whole army of little people, as she put it. The main character shouted to everyone to hold their breath. The special squad silently listened to Kim's words. Then Katarina sent a giant snake at the girl, asking if she could stop something like that. The girl created a field that protected her from the snake's attack, and her actions looked very easy and effortless. A magical burning ball formed in her hand, and when she used it, the snake's head flew off. Kim and Coco, who were watching what was happening, were surprised at how easily she dealt with the snake. The girl asked with a satisfied look who would be next. Kim didn't understand. The snake's head had disappeared, but there was a poisonous fog above it. The girl started to get hysterical because she couldn't see her head in front of her. Kim reported that she cut off her head. Apparently the girl herself did not understand that she had dealt with this matter so easily. The man tried to calm the bishop down. They all began to explain to her that she had already killed the snake. She was happy with this outcome, and thanked everyone who helped her understand what she had done. She immediately ordered the special squad to find the head, But this task was number 2. The first concerned Kim and Coco. Soo-hyuk grabbed Coco by the sweater and ran for cover. The girl said that they were good vampires, so it wouldn't hurt them. Thousands of bullets were aimed towards the heroes, but with the help of their agility, they still managed to reach the corner to take cover. Kim shouted from around the corner that they were not their enemies and that he was cooperating with Miro. "The special forces do not cooperate with vampires," the girl replied, "and especially not with Miro." The hero was very angry. How could she not report this? "Room 1701, Kim said out loud. The girl, preparing a fireball for an attack, did not understand what he was talking about. He explained that Miro lived there, and the ball immediately disappeared from her hands. The bishop was very surprised by this. She could not believe it and was frightened. She didn't believe that Miro was in the room with a man. Since when and why did the bishop begin to shake from misunderstanding and even from fear? For the sake of authenticity, the hero added that Miro is wearing black and white today. This finally finished off the bishop. Miro rushed to the hotel faster than the wind. When she got out of the car, she was upset that it was all true. She stood at the entrance for a while and assessed what she needed to do now. The girl was angry that these stupid vampires broke into the hotel. She ran inside with the thought that they hadn't reached Soo-hyuk yet. She was furious that the vampires attacked precisely when Miro was not around. She understood that if they took Soo-hyuk, it would be the end. Miro burst into the room where everything was happening, screaming. Seeing Kim standing next to Coco, she was slightly surprised that they were really teaming up. The girl bishop still couldn't recover from what she had heard. She stood like a stone, not moving and not saying anything. Miro tried to clarify the situation. 3 vampires from the highest caste got in here. 1 was killed, the 2nd escaped, and the 3rd remained. Miro was angry. The main character was in great danger. They knew that Miro would not be here, which meant they had good informants. It was not safe to stay in the hotel. We needed to move and not get separated anymore. Looking at the hero, the girl exhaled and grinned. When they first met, Kim couldn't defeat even 1 vampire. And now I was able to put 3 of them down. Miro's words made the hero happy, but he tried not to show it and listened silently. Fighting training that goes beyond human strength, and the constant consumption of blood clearly made the hero stronger. If he keeps training, he might kill Anna one day. In any case, Kim asked not to leave him again. Miro screamed that she could not refuse the highest authority, but Kim immediately interrupted her. He said that he had learned important information and asked Miro to calm down and listen to him. He learned a quick way to become stronger than Anna. Miro was shocked because no one had such information before, and it had always been forbidden. In fact, with that kiss before her death, Ayaka conveyed everything to Kim. She gave him the information that she herself was unable to use during her life. Vampires become stronger by tasting large amounts of different blood. That is, even if he becomes stronger in their way, he still won't be able to defeat Anna. However, everything will be different if he drinks the blood of vampires, so he can gain their strength, and, under certain conditions, even skills. Miro doubted the reliability of this information, what the conditions were, and how to obtain the skills were completely unclear. The main character said that he had already checked it personally. At the same moment of information transfer, Kim drank Ayaka's blood, and she was one of Anna's vampires. He began to see the bullet slow down, and the opportunity to dodge it appeared, but he was not able to use his skill for long. Miro told him that there were 7 more vampires under Anna. Now Kim knows for sure that he needs to drink the blood of all 7. Miro understood why Soo-hyuk brought Coco along with him, but she still had doubts. This is one of Anna's vampires, she gave in, so why not? Coco wants to avenge her friend's death, so she might as well be on their side. And yet Miro was a little embarrassed, because there would soon be a conference of bishops. A meeting of all the bishops of the organization. They usually discuss Anna alone. But this time the main theme will be the main character. Without hesitation, Miro pointed her finger at Kim so that he would understand better. He is now one of the vampire hunters, but there are those who are against this. The girl asked him not to worry, since he still had a good reputation. And as he himself said, at first they had to look after the hero, but now trust has been established between them. In any case, Miro praised Soo-hyuk and smiled happily. Unbuttoning the top button of her shirt, she continued the dialogue, and she offered a reward. She allowed him to drink her blood to restore his strength. The second girl, the bishop, who was sitting in the next room behind the door, heard everything and was very embarrassed. So suddenly, the reward, drink, cannot be. Kim was surprised. What kind of reward is this? He drinks blood every day. It was not like the first time he sank his teeth into a person, Miro noted. Previously, it was hard for the hero to restrain himself, but now he feels freer. Kim asked to say if it hurts. The girl couldn't believe what she heard. How did it all happen? She blushed at that very second. She was afraid to imagine what was happening in that room behind the wall. Once the hero said that different blood was needed, the girl suggested that he try Lucia. That was the name of the bishop's second girl. The girl tried to understand to herself whether they were talking about her, but her embarrassment reached its peak. She even imagined that she was next to a man. Miro suddenly burst into the room, apparently to invite them to join them. Lucia lay on the floor. and blood was pouring out of the girl's nose from the strain. Lucia jumped up and said that they would meet with Miro at the bishop's meeting. When Kim entered the room, Lucia stood there, clutching the girl tightly and looking angrily at the guy. She quickly jumped into the car and sped away from them at helicopter speed. Even though Lucia had left them, Miro reminded them that there was still one small problem left. It was Coco. She seriously stated that she was not at all afraid that Miro was a bishop. She was a nobody. And then she ordered the heroes to prepare a place for her to rest in fresh blood. Otherwise she will tear them to shreds. Miro, looking at Soo-hyuk, doubted whether they needed this Coco at all, since she looked completely inadequate. But the guy reminded him that despite everything that was happening, he needed the blood of other vampires. After all, you can suck the blood of an enemy only before death, but the blood of an ally is always available. He was also convinced that her perception and strength would still be useful. Here Coco, clinging to Kim's leg, loudly shouted that she agreed to be only with Soo-hyuk. The girl didn't understand why the vampire treated him so well, but Kim himself didn't know that. Consumed by rage after the death of his brothers, he killed the director and all his henchmen, and he understood perfectly well how someone who had also lost a friend felt. Crouching down to be on the same level as Coco, he convinced the girl that together they would kill Anna, and he asked for friendly help, adding that she was not obliged to help them if she herself did not want to. Kim said that it doesn't matter whether she kills Anna as a vampire, or whether it will be revenge for the death of her friend. It doesn't matter. Coco was determined. She was sure of only one thing. She needed to kill Anna to avenge her friend. Kim asked Miro if she now believed that Coco was on their side, to which he heard the girl's positive answer. Then at the meeting, Miro will have to speak for both of them, since they are now under Miro's supervision. The girl ordered them not to run out of her sight and reminded them that they were forbidden to harm people. But there was one more difficult task for Miro. He had to bathe Coco in order to leave her in his apartment. Coco didn't want to give in at all. She screamed and tried to break free from Miro's hands. Their bathing procedures looked more like torture. Coco claimed that she smelled wonderful, while Miro could not understand how many years the girl had not washed. She used to kill vampires, but what she was doing now, Miro couldn't come to terms with. But Kim encouraged her by saying that it was necessary for the common cause, because he needed the blood of other vampires. It seemed that Coco had gotten a little used to the water and had resigned herself to being tidied up. But after a couple of minutes, a drop of shampoo gets into her eye. It seemed that Coco's screams could be heard throughout the entire hotel. The man even got a headache from the noise. The girl tried to escape. She literally fell out of the bathroom asking Kim for help. She thought that Miro had dropped some poison into her eye. Kim remembered when he received a new rank at work captain. All his colleagues immediately started to think of the best way to call him and shouted that for such an event it was absolutely necessary to get drunk. There was a buzz in the locker room. Everyone was happy and congratulating Kim on his promotion. That was probably the last time he heard the same cries coming from the bathroom now. Everything became quiet, and the girl, exhausted, went to her bed. Miro could no longer cope and called the man to help her. She did not understand why the vampire listened only to him. Soo-hyuk ordered her to shut up and get dressed, after which he began to dry her hair with a hairdryer, and the girl calmly carried out all his instructions. Miro assumed that she was acting like this because of Ayaka. She lost her friend and now finds herself in the territory of a former enemy. Miro lay in her bed and analyzed the entire day, coming to the conclusion that she simply needed to put herself in the girl's shoes. Before she could fall asleep, she felt some strange pain in her arm. It was Coco who said she was hungry. Miro smoothly moved her hand to the katana. Soo-hyuk was sleeping separately in his own bed, but also woke up when he heard sounds coming from the girl's room. At first he wanted to intervene, but still decided to leave them alone. The sounds from the next room were getting louder and louder. Kim mentally wished Miro luck. After some time, the guy finally managed to fall asleep. He needed to gain strength. But suddenly, Coco found herself in bed with him, and he didn't understand what she wanted from him so late. Coco only said a phrase about how Kim Soo-hyuk now belongs to her.